So I thought I'd try and explain this situation with the DJI bans in America. So I'm Australian. This doesn't really impact me unless our government decides to follow along with the US like they often do, kowtow. But I don't think that'll happen. So anyway, there's three scenarios going on at the moment, at least three main ones that tend to get confused in respect of understanding what's going on in America regarding bans on DJI. So the first thing is some legislation that's been presented to the House of Representatives a little while ago now, and that legislation is aiming to ban DJI drones in America, the US, full stop. It won't retrospectively ban, so if you already own one, when the ban goes into effect, you'll be fine, but you'll no longer be able to purchase DJI drones in the US. And maybe not bring them into the country, I'm not sure about that. You certainly won't be able to buy them in the store or import them to sell them retail in the US. And the reasoning behind that is given by supporters of the bill, which has passed the House of Representatives. It has not passed in the Senate yet, so that's yet to go to the Senate. What supporters of the bill are claiming is that DJI colludes with the Chinese government, basically, so that any information collected by DJI drones that DJI drone users sync to the cloud, to the DJI cloud, then any of that information will be data mined by the Chinese government via DJI. That's what supporters of the bill are afraid could easily happen. People who disagree with the bill believe that there isn't good evidence for that. DJI themselves have made several efforts to show that they're not colluding with the Chinese government. DJI have agreed to various measures in the aid of transparency. So that's the first issue: is that whether DJI drones will be banned for good in the US. Still coming up for vote in the Senate, so that's not actually active yet. The second issue that often gets conflated with that is DJI being accused of being a military company. So in other words, a company that works with the Chinese government and the Chinese military to provide services or value add for the Chinese military, that they're somehow involved with the Chinese military industrial complex. And there's no good evidence of that either. The Department of Defense, FBI, and various government organizations, US government organizations, have banned the use of DJI drones within those government departments and defense. Not within consumer or commercial use, just government departments using those drones. So government departments in general, especially the military, are not allowed to use DJI drones for their operations. And because the Department of Defense and the US government generally have made this claim that DJI is working with the Chinese military in some way, this has impacted DJI's ability to sell drones. In companies who aren't government based have nevertheless taken what the Department of Defense and other government organisations have said to heart, and they've gone, well, if they're not using them, we're not going to use them either. So despite there being no real good reason for DJI being put on this list of organisations who work with the Chinese military, the fact that they have been has caused commercial companies, not government companies, to refuse to use DJI products, so it's affected their market share. Now, DJI have done several things to try and rectify this. They've talked to the US government. They've presented evidence, proving pretty good evidence. Again, I'll put some links below. Pretty good evidence that they are not a Chinese government military organisation, or not working with the Chinese military in any way. Not owned by, not manipulated by, not controlled by the Chinese military. And they've presented this information to the US government, but the US government has gone, nope, sorry, we don't want to use your stuff. You're still on the list. We're not taking you off this list. So despite DJI making several attempts, presenting evidence, trying to get some common sense, they haven't been listened to, so they've gone, okay, we have no option, we're going to sue. They're suing the US government for placing them on a list that says they work with the Chinese military because it's affected their market share unfairly. Okay, so that's two. The third thing is the current ban, which is actually affecting consumer imports at the moment in the US. So you at the moment cannot import, there's a ban on importing drones from DJI or any DJI products, I think. I'm not sure if the drone includes everything or just certain drones. I think it's a general ban against DJI at the moment. And the reason behind this ban is because there's some evidence, some members of the government believe that DJI is using forced labour in the Uyghur regions of China, slave labour. And DJI's response is, well, no, we're not doing that. Our operations are in Shenzhen. And they've denied that they're using any kind of slave labour in the production of their drones. And they have pretty good evidence of that too, but that's probably difficult to say 100% that they aren't, other than by taking them at face value. But nevertheless, my opinion is it's another stitch up by the US government, who are trying to kill competition in order for their companies to be more successful. So, for example, Skydio. Now, again, there's no evidence that Skydio are lobbying the US government to get DJI banned. There's no evidence of that either. So we don't want to jump on the DJI conspiracy bandwagon, so we won't jump on the Skydio conspiracy bandwagon either. There's no evidence that Skydio are lobbying the US government. But it could be that it could be a couple of things here. I think this is my take on it now. So I've told you what the three scenarios are. This is my take on it, is that the US government is very keen to, one, have there be no chance whatsoever of China spying on them, even if it impacts a private company who's doing nothing wrong. They don't care about that. US government doesn't care about that. They're only looking for any excuse they can find to ban DJI, so they can just rest easy and not worry that there might be a chance. They don't want Chinese drones operating in the US. Now, whether this DJI ban, if it comes into effect, would extend to other DJI Chinese drone companies, I don't know. I mean, you can buy hundreds of different brands, no-name brands of drones on AliExpress and Temu, come straight from China, but I don't think any of them are anywhere near as good as DJI. There's Unique, and I don't know whether they're Chinese or not, but there's no real manufacturing capable of competing with DJI at the moment coming from China. So the US government, so that's number one. The US government is keen to make sure there's absolutely no threat from a Chinese company. And I guess I would probably class that a little bit in the same category as the TikTok ban. And this is my view on that, is that it's racist, not high key racist, just low key racist, but it's a situation of perception. The perception that China will do anything they can to manipulate their industry in order to spy on the US. So, manipulate the US through social media, etc., etc., etc. So I would class the whole TikTok ban, DJI ban, Huawei bans from routers and things, all that sort of stuff in the same category of of not wanting to have any chance whatsoever that China is spying on US citizens or US politicians, etc., etc. It's not like it's unprecedented of the US government to be worried about this kind of thing. It's just that they're acting without evidence. They're just saying, no, we don't want anything to do with DJI. They can bugger off, and we don't care whether they're actually doing anything or not. We're just going to make sure they don't have a chance to. So that's the first reason why the government doing it, and it's somewhat based in racism, like that threat of China, but it's also, also China has done some dodgy things as well, so it's not completely irrational, but it's still unfair on those companies who are doing the right thing, especially a company like DJI that has actually done a lot to demonstrate openness and transparency. So that's the first reason. And the second reason I probably think that the US is doing this is protectionism. So protectionism in the US is not uncommon. The US, a great nation of capitalism. Who go on and on about that freedom of enterprise, competition, the value of competition, but they also will take measures to protect their industry as well. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I believe it's often appropriate to use protectionism to protect your industry from aggressive marketing from overseas companies. I'm not opposed to that, but I don't believe you should do it dishonestly. If you really believe, if you don't want Chinese products flooding the market, then you put a massive tariff on Chinese products. That's the honest way to do it. I know extremists are I hate that, but that's the honest way to do it. If you really want to reduce foreign competition to give your local companies a go, then tariffs is the way to do it. And there are other measures, duties, and registration. There's probably lots of different ways you can do it, but all within that category of economic fair. Yeah. So that would mean that no Chinese company, or any Australian company, a British company, importing stuff into the US would be subject to the same duties. Like, why are you only protecting your nation against China? Protect them against us in Australia as well. Protect your companies against Europe. Like, don't just single out China, just because they have a different political philosophy to you. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's the second reason I think it's just protectionism. And whether it's the fear of China spying on the US or whether it's protectionism, and I think different advocates and different lobbyists lean more towards one or other of those reasons. But I would say that 90% of lobbyists don't really believe that DJI is doing anything wrong. It's just that for whatever reason, one of those two reasons, or a bit of both, they want to stop DJI drones from coming into the country. And that's my view. So I've given you some facts. One, there's a bill currently going through Congress to ban DJI drones for good in the US would not be retrospective, only for new drones. So DJI would no longer be able to sell drones in the US. 2, DJI is suing the US government for putting them on a list saying they're part of the Chinese industrial complex, and that's unfairly affecting their sales in the US. And 3, there's the current ban on DJI products because they are apparently using forced labour and slave labour in the production of their products. So that's it, and thanks for listening, and I hope this has been useful.